In England, just before the war, one of the most important political issues was the right of women to vote. It was the suffragettes who led the fight. First, they tried peaceful protest. But when this didn't work, they turned to violence, burning down and bombing buildings. The British government started a campaign to silence the suffragettes. They were sent to jail and forced to endure all the humiliation of prison life. 7 months before the outbreak of war, one of the suffragette leaders, Sylvia Pankhurst, was sent to prison for breaking a window. She, like many others, went on hunger strike and was force-fed.
I heard footsteps approaching outside my cell. I was strangled with fear, yet alert to every sound. A crowd of wardresses filled the doorway. They flung me on my back, on the bed, and held me down firmly by shoulders and ankles. Then the doctors came stealing in. A metal instrument pressed against my gums, cutting the flesh. They were trying to get a tube down my throat. I braced myself to resist that terrible pain. They got it down, I suppose, though I was unconscious of anything then, save a mad revolt of struggling.
The suffragettes called off their campaign as soon as war broke out. Most women felt it was their duty to help the war effort.
Oh, we don't want to lose you, but we think you ought to go.
At first, they encouraged men to enlist and provided things for the troops. They collected millions of cigarettes, books, and pairs of socks. By 1915, there was a shortage of workers, as so many men had joined up. In this total war, women were needed to take over jobs which had always been done by men. Of all the professions women took over, one of the most important was shell making.
The guns out there are roaring fast. The bullets fly like rain. The aeroplanes are curvetting. They go and come again. The bombs talk loud. The mines crash out. No trench their might withstands. Who helped them all to do their job? The girls' hands.
In Britain, 1 million women went to work in the munitions factories, like the Woolwich Arsenal.
The first time you go around, you think, what an interesting place. Then the evil smell becomes more noticeable. The particles of acid land on your face and make you nearly mad, feeling like pins and needles.
Gabrielle West was part of the women's police service. Her job was to keep order inside the factories.
The fumes often mean 16 or 18 casualties a night. You're blind and speechless by the time you escape.
Some of the casualties weren't serious. Women cut their fingers or got grit in their eyes. But sometimes they were killed by exploding shells. What many of the women didn't realize at the time was that they were being killed slowly by the explosives. All the time they were in the factory, they were breathing in the poisonous fumes of the TNT. The first symptoms of TNT poisoning were like a common cold. But these soon got worse, as munitions worker Caroline Webb discovered.
It was all bright ginger, all our front hair. And all our faces were bright yellow. They used to call us canaries. This doctor, he was looking at us girls one day and he'd say, half you girls will never have babies, and the other half are too sick. God help you.
War work was dangerous, but the women knew that without their supply of shells and bullets, the men would lose the war.
Sometimes when we come upon our little train, it would be all packed with different people. And there'd be all the officers sitting there. Some of them used to look at us as if we were insects. And others used to mutter, well, they're doing their bit. We said, well, we don't mind dying for our country.
The women believed that after the war, their work would win them the vote and recognition. But as the men returned, women were forced out of their jobs, and equal voting rights with men were not achieved until 1928. Everyone was now a target. Total war meant even children were involved, as fighting, gas and bombs destroyed their homes. Children were also used in propaganda. Governments had to keep up everyone's morale and keep the soldiers fighting. Propaganda postcards pictured tiny babies carrying guns, showing that everyone was involved and everyone had to play their part. Workers in munitions factories were urged on by these new words to an old nursery rhyme.
This is the house that Jack built. This is the bomb that fell on the house that Jack built. It's the Hun that dropped the bomb that fell on the house that Jack built. This is the gun that killed the Hun that dropped the bomb that fell on the house that Jack built.
Propaganda posters showed the enemy as a devil, someone to be hated. In newspapers, real events were distorted and exaggerated to make the enemy seem like a savage.
British war correspondents in Belgium have seen little murdered children with roasted feet. The tiny mites were hung over a fire before they were slain. This was done by German troops, men with children of their own at home, or with little brothers and sisters of the same age as the innocents they torture before killing.
On July the 1st, 1916, the Battle of the Somme began. It was the single worst day in British military history. There were over 46,000 British casualties and over 19,000 soldiers were killed. The British government carefully controlled how the newspapers reported the battle. They weren't so successful at controlling the new medium, film. The world's first war documentary gave people a much more realistic and shocking view of the war. People saw this silent film at the cinema. Music played as they watched. People were stunned by the images from the Somme. Some of them had been staged, but most were real. As the film showed the soldiers going over the top, the music stopped playing, and the audience could see the soldiers being killed. In lots of places, injured soldiers had to be led crying from the cinema, and other people shouted, "My God, they're dead." The film was supposed to boost morale. It didn't. It was seen by an estimated 20 million people. The British government, like governments everywhere, quickly realized the power of the moving image. In future, official films of battle would only show carefully selected pictures.